So this is MEFA's What to Know About the CSS Profile. I'm sure many of you are comfortable with Zoom, but if you haven't been on in a while, here's some basic instructions about how to navigate. And again, any questions you have, go ahead and type them into the Q&A panel. Julie will answer them behind the scenes, and then we'll go through any others at the end. For those who aren't familiar with us, we're MEFA. We're the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. We're a state authority. We were created in 1982. And our sole purpose really is just to help families plan, save, and pay for college. So we do a lot of webinars like this. We have a lot of content on our website, and we're all over social media as well. So if you're planning for college, if you're saving for college, definitely take advantage of all of our resources. They're free of charge just to help you get through the college years. So let's begin with the CSS Profile. The CSS Profile is basically a financial aid application. It's completely online, and it's required by about 200 colleges and universities and a few scholarship programs throughout the country. If you need to know if a school requires the CSS Profile, the best thing to do is go to that college's financial aid webpage. There is a page on the CSS Profile website that shows participating colleges and universities. Most of the schools that use the CSS Profile are on that page, but it is an optional opt-in for schools to list themselves on that page. So we always tell people, if you really need to know which schools are requiring which financial aid applications, which you do if you're requiring or you're applying for financial aid, go to every school's financial aid webpage and find out the requirements and their due dates. Every college and university that requires the CSS Profile also requires the FAFSA. So if you're doing the profile for a school, you also do have to do the FAFSA. The FAFSA is not available till December. We'll talk about that, but you will have to do the FAFSA as well. The CSS Profile, or we call it Profile for short, is used to award non-federal financial aid funds. So the schools that use it usually have a significant amount of their own money, college funds, or we call them institutional funds, that they can award to families. So they use the profile to award their funds. They're basically gathering more information from families and then determining which of their funds they'd like to give to each family who's applying for financial aid. The CSS Profile opens October 1st, which is Sunday. It does actually look like it's already open. So if you're, after you watch this webinar, anxious to start applying and filling out that profile, you might actually be able to get on now. I was on the profile website earlier today. It looks like you're actually able to register and start the application. It might be that they just opened it and you can't actually fill out the entire application yet, but you will be able to do so by Sunday, October 1st. So it does open very soon. The profile is available for both domestic and international students, whereas the FAFSA is really for just domestic students. A lot of colleges use the profile also for their international student population. Institutions that use the profile and require it do so for a few reasons. One is that it actually asks for more detailed information than the FAFSA. And we'll go into what the questions are on the profile and the FAFSA, but the FAFSA asks for basic income and asset information, household information. The profile goes into more details, and we'll go through what those details are and what the profile actually asks for. But institutions use it because they get to collect more information from every family, and they believe this gives them a better idea of a family's eligibility for financial aid. What schools want to do is really determine who needs their financial aid funds. And so they feel like the profile allows them to get a better picture of a family's financial situation, and thereby they're able to more equitably give out their financial aid to those families. The profile also allows schools to ask customized questions. So if I'm a college and I want to ask every family applying for financial aid a specific question that's not on the FAFSA and not on the profile, I can actually add a customized question. So schools love that they can add in any question they want. And the profile also has a special circumstances section where families can type in anything they'd like. And that message goes right to the financial aid office everywhere where you've sent the profile. So if I'm a family and I have a unique situation, maybe I have a lot of family members living with me and I'm providing their financial support and I want the financial aid office to know that, I can type that into the special circumstances section, and every financial aid office that receives my profile will get that message. Here's where you will start with the CSS profile. This is the home page. So you see, I'm going to go just around with some different points on the home page that you should make note of. You'll see that high school seniors should apply for 24-25. So if you have a high school senior and you're applying for financial aid, you're going to think about what year in school will the child be that we're applying for financial aid for. So if I have a high school senior, we're applying for financial aid for the 2024-25 academic year. So that's the profile and the FAFSA that you're going to fill out, that 24-25 application. You can see on the home page that list I've referenced, which is participating schools and scholarships. So again, this is a pretty comprehensive list. You can check there to see all of the schools that require the profile. Again, just to be sure, if you have your list of where your high school seniors applying, I would go to the financial aid webpage of each of those colleges just to make sure you know exactly what's required. But this is a pretty comprehensive list that you can click to right from the profile homepage of the participating schools, so those schools that require this application. In the middle there, you see learn how to apply. That's just some tips about completing the profile. There's also some tips about completing the profile for the non-custodial parent. We'll talk about that in more detail. There is a resource for Spanish-speaking families, and then at the top there are some more links. So this is just an overview of what you'll see when you go to that profile homepage. You can simply type in csssprofile.org into your browser and you'll get to this page. If you click on that link that says participating schools, you'll get to this page. So you can see for every school, there's a CSS code. That's basically just a code that the College Board has assigned to each school. You've got the institution name, the state where it's located, and then a listing of whether the profile is required for domestic students and whether it's required for international students. Then you'll see if the profile is required for non-custodial parents. And again, we'll go into more detail about that. And then whether the profile school uses iDoc. That's basically a scanning service. And we'll explain that in a bit as well. But this is just an overview of, it does give you a good idea of what schools are using the profile and different aspects of the profile that they're using. So here are some additional resources on the home page. So below that first screenshot that I just showed, this is what you'll see. So there's just some more resources, information about fee waivers, international students, divorced and separated parents. All of this we'll go over today in the webinar. But as you're navigating through the application, if you have some questions or you're not sure about one of these categories, you can click and get more information. At the bottom of the home page is that video you'll see. This is a quick, I believe it's a 3-minute video, just a nice overview of the application you can watch before you start. Just gives you, again, another overview about what you'll see. Okay, so let's talk about the application process. To begin the CSS profile, you'll need to sign in. There's a few ways to do that. If your child did the SAT, took the SAT, or took an AP test, your child likely already has a College Board account and a College Board login. If you choose, you can sit down with your child, have your child log in using his or her College Board ID, College Board username, password, and then you can get in and complete the profile under your child's College Board account. That's definitely an option. If you want, you can create your own College Board login and complete the profile that way. Some families choose to do this because they don't want their student to see all of the information they inputted into the profile. Some don't mind. But if you would like to create your own login to do the profile, you can do that. It's slightly confusing because you as the parent are going to create a new student account using your information. And that's simply because there's not a parent login. There's not a parent account. All the accounts on the College Board website are labeled student accounts. But if I'm a parent, my name's Meredith, I'm going to go in and I'm going to click I need to set up a new student account, I'm going to put in my information, my name, Meredith, my information, my address, my email address, not my child, my information. So just keep that in mind. If you're creating a new account and you're the parent, you're going into the section where it says create a new student account, but just put in your information, your name, your email address, etc. The CSS profile is a customized application, meaning that the questions that you received are based on the student and the colleges where they're applying. So there is smart logic throughout. As you're answering questions, the profile is determining what additional questions they need to ask and what questions they don't need to ask you because they don't apply to your situation. As I mentioned too, colleges can add in questions. So as you list colleges where you're going to send your profile information, you might see additional questions pop up that those colleges have required the people applying to that college to answer. As sections are required, they are added. So if you list in a certain college and they've added a question, added a section, they'll pop up on your profile. There are some modern features to the application. You can complete the profile actually in any order. The FAFSA, for those who've done that in the past, you have to go through each section in order. The profile, you can jump around if you'd like. You can also complete it in multiple sittings, so you can start, save it, and then go back later. And it's also mobile friendly if you'd like to do it on a phone or tablet. Some general tips, and some of these are pretty intuitive. You're going to click Save and Continue to go to the next section, or if you want to stop completing the profile for a bit and return to it later on or the next day. As you're navigating through, when you're hitting the arrows to go from section to section, go ahead and use the arrows that are in the actual application, not in your browser. That's going to make it easier for you to navigate through the application. There's going to be hints and notes throughout that can help you answer the questions. Some are expandable, and again, you'll be able to see that so that you can read more information about every question if you need to. Do answer every question that you have answers for. There are some questions that are not required, but if you have the answer, go ahead and put it in. One of those examples is the social security number of the student. This is not required, but it is helpful because then the financial aid office can basically tie the CSS profile to the student's admissions application to the student's FAFSA. So if you see an optional question, but you do have an answer for it, go ahead and fill that in. And if a question is not required and you don't have an answer for it or it doesn't apply to you, you can go ahead and leave it blank. So for the parent information, and this is a little bit different from the FAFSA, if for those of you who have ever filled out a FAFSA, you are going to report information for all of the parents of the student. So if we have a student and student lives with mom and dad, you're going to report the mom and the dad on the profile. If a student has a mom and a dad and those parents are divorced and they're both remarried, you are going to list all 4 parents on the profile. So all the parents and then all the step parents. If a parent has passed away, you're still going to list that parent on the profile. So list all the parents of the student. Legal guardians should be reported as parents, and this is different than the FAFSA. If you're a student who has a legal guardian on the FAFSA, you actually, oops, sorry about that. If you're a student that has a legal guardian on the FAFSA, you only report student information. On the profile, the legal guardian acts as the parent. So that legal guardian fills out the parent information. In situations of divorce or separation, you have to select what's called a custodial parent on the profile. That's the language they use. And that would be the parent who has provided more financial support to the student in the previous 12 months. This is new, and it's the same definition on the FAFSA. So if you're someone who's filled out financial aid applications before, this is new. If you haven't, this is the directive you're going with. So if I'm a student, my parents are divorced, I live with my mom, I live with my dad, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to ask myself who provided more of my financial support in the previous 12 months. Let's say my dad did. And in the cases of child support, you're going to assume the child support is financial support coming from that parent. So even if I live with my mom, let's say my dad pays and that child support paired with other financial support he has given me really to me means in the past 12 months, my dad has provided me more financial support. Doesn't matter that I live with my mom, doesn't matter who I live with. My dad in this situation is going to be the custodial parent, he and I are going to fill out the CSS profile. We're going to list my mom. We're going to call her the non-custodial parent. We're going to list her on the profile, but she's not going to fill out this main profile application. It's going to be me and my dad. If my dad is remarried, let's say I have a step parent, let's say it's a stepmother, my dad and my stepmother are going to fill in their information on the profile. Now, in my example, my mom is my non-custodial parent. Some schools do require her to fill out a separate profile. So you're going to check on the school's financial aid page to find out what they require. They're going to say, we need that non-custodial parent profile. My mom will actually do a separate profile as my non-custodial parent. So her name's going to be listed on mine, but not her financial information. She's going to fill out a separate profile. In my situation, I'm going to be going through my CSS profile, and it's going to ask about my non-custodial parent, and it's going to ask me to provide her email address. So I'll type that in, and the profile will then send my mom an email and say, you are Meredith's non-custodial parent. We need you to fill out your own CSS profile, and she can log on and do that. It is my responsibility to follow up with my mom and make sure she got that email and make sure she fills out that non-custodial profile if it's required. Again, you saw on the homepage, there is a section for divorced or separated families, provides a little bit more information, so you can click there to get some tips. Sometimes there's a situation where there's a non-custodial parent, their information is required by a college, but the student isn't able to get in touch with that non-custodial parent. If I'm a student and I'm in that situation, I am going to receive some follow-up questions. So I'm going to notate on the profile that I don't have non-custodial parent information. I'm then going to be asked some questions. Is that parent deceased, unknown, incarcerated, or involved with a legal or documented abuse? Or it might be that I'm a student who has a single adoptive parent. I have only had one parent my entire life, so there's no other parent. Or I was conceived by a single parent. Again, no other. Or I'm just not in touch with a non-custodial parent. Haven't talked to that parent in years, not even sure where that parent lives. I'm going to answer these questions that the profile provides for me. And based on my answers, the requirement for me to provide non-custodial parent information might be removed. And I might be good just to provide the information for the parent, my custodial parent. If my non-custodial parent information is still required and for whatever reason I can't provide it, I'm going to submit a waiver to the colleges, basically a waiver request. And there's a form. I have the URL on the page here. You can go onto the CSS Profile website and fill out this waiver request. And it's basically the student explaining why he or she can't get non-custodial parent information. You'll send that off to all the schools that are requiring non-custodial parent information. And then really as a student and as the family, you should follow up with each school to make sure they've received that waiver request and what they've done with it. They might say, okay, yep, we're not going to require non-custodial parent information. They might actually come back and say, no, we think we still need it. So make sure that you follow up with every school because you want to make sure that you've completed all application requirements. As the non-custodial parent, so in my example, that was my mom, that parent is going to receive that email request from the profile. So if I'm a non-custodial parent, I've got that request, your child needs you to fill out a profile. I'm going to go to that same website, cssprofile.org. I do need to create my own College Board account. So as the parent, I'm going to do that process I explained earlier. I'm going to create a student account using my information. I need a new College Board account. On my profile as the non-custodial parent, I don't have to supply student financial information because that's already been supplied on the main profile. I'm just going to provide my own financial information and some demographic information about the student. I don't have to list the colleges where the profile is going. The student's already done that. And I can't submit the application until the student has actually selected a college, but usually that's already been done. There is a fee to submit the profile, and there are fee payment codes available. So those do apply to the non-custodial parent, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. If I am completing 2 CSS profiles as the non-custodial parent, I will need 2 College Board accounts using 2 different email addresses. So that's a little bit confusing. But if I'm a non-custodial parent, I have twins applying to college. They're both applying to colleges that require a CSS profile and a non-custodial CSS profile. I've got to use 2 different email addresses, create 2 College Board accounts to create 2 different profiles. And just as a reassurance, the custodial and the non-custodial parents don't see each other's information. So you're a family, you're completing the profile. Here's the general information that you're going to supply. The colleges where the student is applying. You're only going to write down the colleges that require the profile. So for those that don't require the profile, you don't need to list those, but any colleges that require the profile. And parent and student 2022 income information. Similar to the FAFSA, the profile goes back 2 years. So we're filling out the 24-25 profile. It's going to ask for 2022 income information. It is going to refer to your tax return. Any of you who filled out the FAFSA know that there's a process where the FAFSA actually pulls your tax return information automatically from the IRS. It's a great feature. The CSS profile does not have that. So the CSS profile is going to ask for your income information. It's going to refer to your tax return. So you need to have that in front of you. So before you even start the profile, get your tax return, all your schedules, get your W-2s, because questions are going to refer to certain line items on your taxes, and then you'll be able to easily grab that information. There's going to be asset questions, so savings accounts, checking accounts, investments. So make sure you have your current statements. It's going to ask for current information for your assets. Income information is from 2022. Asset information is current. What do you have in the bank? What do you have in your investments right now? The profile is going to ask for household member information, who lives at home, and the number of children who are going to college. As mentioned, the profile does ask for more information than the FAFSA. So the FAFSA is going to ask for your general income, asset information, who's in your household. The profile digs a little bit deeper. So in addition to all the questions asked on the FAFSA, the profile is going to ask for some additional income data. Some of that is listed on your screen. Any untaxed Social Security benefits, if you had a foreign income exclusion, alimony, household allowances, workers' compensation, disability benefits. It's going to ask about a lot of income information. Your assets, it's going to ask for the value and debt of your primary home, where you live. On the FAFSA, you don't list your primary home. You do list other real estate, but not your primary home. The profile asks for all your real estate, your primary home and any other real estate you own. It's going to ask about any assets held in the names of other children. This is a little bit of an unusual question. It doesn't apply to most people, but if you have placed parent assets in the name of, let's say, a sibling of the student, you'll need to report those assets. You don't have to report the assets of siblings of the student, only if you've put your own assets, the parent assets, into the names of any of your children. And then the profile will ask for the value of your retirement. What's sitting in your retirement account? A lot of people panic at this. They don't want schools to assume they can use their retirement value and what's sitting in their retirement accounts to pay for colleges. And most colleges don't use this information. They might eyeball it. They might look at it just as a point of reference, but a lot of them don't use it in any type of calculation. So be assured, if you saved a lot for retirement, kudos to you. It probably won't be used at all in the financial aid process. And then the profile does ask about any expenses you have. And this is a benefit to you as a family. They want to know, do you have high medical or dental expenses? Are you paying private school tuition? Or are you paying off education loans of your own, or maybe an older student in your family? Definitely list all that, because that's going to help you out. As colleges are going to take that into consideration, knowing that you have these extra expenses as you go to pay for college for the student applicant. The profile is going to ask about your family situation. So who's in your household, as I mentioned, the ages of children in the family, and the colleges that they're attending. It's going to ask for some data of the student, any private scholarships that they've won, if there's any employee tuition benefits. That's usually benefits that you're getting as the parent that will be applied to the student. And then there's going to be, as I mentioned, this explanation of special circumstances. So you'll have an opportunity a few times throughout the application to just type in, this is basically a note to the financial aid offices, letting them know anything special about your situation with your finances, with your household. If you're not sure whether to include it, go ahead and include it. And every financial aid officer is going to read that note. So they will receive the information and they'll take it into consideration when determining your financial aid package. There are also, as I mentioned, supplemental questions asked by colleges and universities. So they might have decided to add in an additional question. Sometimes these aren't required, but go ahead and answer them if you do have the answers. and you'll see which college actually asked each question. So you can see who's requiring which additional information from you. There is a fee associated with the CSS profile, whereas the FAFSA is always completely free to submit. There is a fee with the profile. It's $25 to fill out the application and submit it to one school, and then $16 to submit it to every additional school. You can pay with credit or debit card. For that non-custodial parent, they only have to pay $25 one time, no matter how many schools are getting their information. And there is a fee waiver policy that we'll go through on the next slide. It is good to know 40% of applicants and over 80% of first-generation applicants do get a fee waiver. So there are a lot of students that do get a fee waiver. Fee waivers are given to students who meet one of the following criteria. Their AGI is $100,000 or less, and that's household AGI, so basically parent AGI. Any student who's an orphan or ward of the court and under 24 years old, and then anyone who already received an SAT fee waiver. These students will be told you're given a fee waiver, you don't have to pay anything to submit the CSS profile, and there's no limit. You can submit the profile to as many schools as you'd like. The fee waivers are only given to freshmen, transfer, returning, independent undergraduate students. So some schools use the profile for graduate students, only undergraduate, and it's only available to students who have parents living in the US, not available to international students. Non-custodial parents, if your household income is under $100,000, you will get that fee waiver. There's also something called fee payment codes, and these are purchased either by colleges and universities, sometimes college access organizations, and they're given to students. You can use one code to submit the profile to one school, and you can use as many codes as you'd like. You just have to use one code for every school. So sometimes students are working with a college access organization, or they're working with a specific college or university. They're not able to pay the fee, and the college or university will say, here's a fee payment code, type this in, and then you won't have to pay anything to submit the application. So once you go through all of the questions on the CSS profile, you'll be given a chance to review your entire application. There's going to be some prompts if there are inconsistencies. So if you put in, for example, an extraordinarily high student AGI, student income, the profile is probably going to notate that and think, this might be parent income. The family might have put parent income into student income line by accident. So a prompt will come up, and the profile will ask for you to review the information and to verify that it is correct. If there's an error, that's where you'll be able to correct it before you submit. You are able to print your answers if desired. So here's where you'll be able to print everything that you entered into the profile if you'd like to do that. You'll have to check a box to verify everything is accurate. So once you review your answers, you'll say, yep, everything's complete. And this is where you'll be asked to pay. And this is where you'll also be shown if you've gotten a fee waiver. There is a dashboard on the CSS profile. You can access this anytime. And this is really your landing page. This is where a lot of your information is. So if you log into the profile, you can go to your dashboard. That's where the application status is going to be for every school, whether you submitted the application, whether it's been received. Every college that you've listed on your profile, it's going to be the submission date. So when you sent the profile to that school, the deadline for the school, any additional requirements. So maybe that school is requiring a non-custodial profile or additional documentation. That'll be on your dashboard. Any next steps, your payment receipt. This is where you can go ahead and print the application. So if you do the profile, you submit it, and then you think, oh, I want to print my answers. Go back into the profile, go to your dashboard, and you can go ahead and print your answers at that point. This is also where you can add a college. So this is a question we get a lot. What if you send your profile to 3 schools, you're finished with it, and then your child decides, I want to apply to one more school and it requires the profile. Log back in, go to your dashboard. You can add the school right on your dashboard, and this is where you'll just have to pay that $16 again. There will also be a link to iDoc. We'll talk about that. That's on your dashboard. This is also where you can add your non-custodial parent's email address. So if you haven't done that already, and you've noticed that as a student, you have a non-custodial parent that needs to fill out a profile. If you haven't notated the email address of that non-custodial parent, you could do so in your dashboard, and you can send that request to fill out that profile. Also on that page is that student CB FinAid ID. So every student has a basically College Board Financial Aid ID. You can find that right on the dashboard. There is a new feature, this was new last year. On the CSS profile, you can submit corrections one time per application. And there's a few examples of or situations when you can submit a correction. If you completed the application as an independent student, but you're actually a dependent, so you answered a question wrong, maybe you said you were an orphan and you're not, you said you were married, you're not, you can correct that and then complete the application as a dependent. If you forgot to include business or farm information, or if you basically just made a mistake, if you put in a wrong number, you answered a question incorrectly, there's a drop-down box where you can just say you made a mistake. And then you have an opportunity to write in an explanation. So you can say, oh, I answered this question wrong, I reported the wrong amount of assets or income, and then you can type that in and submit that correction. Corrections are usually permitted once you've submitted the application and about 24 hours has gone through, and then you can go in and make that correction. You can't complete a correction and then also add additional colleges within the same sitting. So go ahead and add your additional colleges and then you can make your correction or vice versa, but you can't do them all at once. And there's no charge to submit any correction. You'll just go ahead and submit it and then your colleges will receive that information. So IDOC I've mentioned a few times. This is a scanning service offered by the College Board. And it basically allows colleges and universities to request documentation from families that they will use within their financial aid evaluation process. And the College Board provides this service. It allows colleges and universities to request tax returns or specific forms that they want families to submit. And rather than colleges asking families to fill out this information or collect this information and mail it directly to the college, instead, families submit it to IDOC, the scanning service. IDOC takes all this information and sends it electronically to the school. So it just makes the school's job easier as they're collecting documentation in the financial aid process. There is a IDOC dashboard. So this is a separate dashboard from the profile dashboard. And this is going to tell students of their required documents. Not every college uses IDOC. So some colleges don't want to collect additional documentation, or they do have students actually mail it to the school. But a lot of schools that use Profile also use IDOC. You can see on your IDOC dashboard, there will be a Get Forms link. So if there are specific forms you have to complete, you'll be able to do that on the IDOC website. Colleges and universities will let you know if they're using IDOC and if they're requiring information. So one thing you can do is once you've done your profile, you can go to your profile dashboard and look at each of those schools, and it will list, yep, we're using IDOC and we need you to submit certain documentation. And then you can click over to the IDOC website, which is on your screen, idoc.collegeboard.com, and you can then submit your documentation. So let's say you're on your profile dashboard and you see, oh, these 3 schools are asking for my tax return. They want to verify the information that I submitted. They want to see my tax return. You'll go over to IDOC, you'll log in, and you'll be able to upload your tax return. It has to be in that JPEG, TIFF, or a PDF format. A lot of us have that already, so you'll just have to upload it that way. In most cases, you do have to sign the document, so you might have to print out your signature page, sign it, and then upload it so that the college knows that this has been verified, this has been signed. If you have any trouble with IDOC, there is a customer service line, so you can go ahead and call them with any technical questions. But this is usually a pretty seamless service, and it just allows you to submit all the documentation that the school is requesting. If you'd like an IDOC overview, they do provide one. This is just a quick little overview of how IDOC works and how you use the service. So if you're required to use it and you want to have an overview before you actually upload everything, you can watch these slides, and that's the URL on your screen. As you go through the CSS profile, you can, of course, reach out to MEFA if you have any questions at all, and we're happy to talk you through the process or answer any of your questions. Sometimes if it's something specific to your CSS profile, maybe you submitted it and the profile dashboard is showing that you haven't submitted it yet. If it's something technical like that, it's really best to reach out to Profile Customer Service. If you click on that contact us link on the top navigation bar anytime throughout the profile application, you'll get to this page. So there's a phone number for students, there's a phone number for counselors and financial aid administrators, and there's also chat. So if chat is available, if there's someone on the other end of chat, you'll see live chat in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and you can click on that. There is an email address, finaidservices@collegeboard.org. Some years the profile puts this on their webpage, some years they don't. It's always been the same email address, so we went ahead and added it. So if you'd rather email the CSS profile with any questions, use that email address, finaidservices@collegeboard.org, and then someone will get back to you, answer your question. So things you can do now as a family. We have a timeline for college admissions and financial aid right on MEFA.org. Go ahead and reference that to go through this entire year. It breaks up the year by seasons, so you won't miss anything as your son or daughter's applying for financial aid and applying for admission to colleges. Go on every college and university's website and find out the deadlines and the required applications for financial aid. The FAFSA this year doesn't open till December, so some colleges are requiring additional forms or information. So this year especially, but we tell people to do this every year, go to the financial aid page of every school on your child's list and find out every application that's required and all the deadlines. We have some other great webinars this year scheduled. If you go to our events page, MEFA.org events, you'll find those. And you can go ahead and start completing those applications. CSS Profile opens October 1st. And the FAFSA will open in December. We don't have a date for the FAFSA yet. The Department of Education has not provided one. By New Year's Eve, they're supposed to have that FAFSA open. So just have it on your list. We'll definitely be contacting families once the FAFSA is open. So if you sign up for our emails, which you can do right on our homepage, MEFA.org, we'll let you know as soon as the FAFSA is available. Want to point out we're all over social media. We're posting daily with great tips about financial aid and admissions, information about saving for college, all kinds of things. So find us Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. And we also have a podcast for those who are podcast listeners. Great information about college planning. Okay, and that concludes the presentation. I know Julie's been incredibly busy behind the scenes answering questions. So here she is popping on. We'll go ahead and answer any questions. If you have to jump off, or if we don't get to your question, our 800 number is on the screen there, and also our email address. So reach out to us anytime. We'll also send out this recording if you want to watch it again. But we are available throughout the season, so definitely reach out to us with any additional questions as you go through this process. Oh, and Julie, I think you're muted.
Thank you. So one question we have, a number of people ask this and I forget the answer. If the non-custodial parent wants to start the profile, can they do that, or do they need to wait for the student to start and send the email?
Right, so I believe the student has to start, and the student has to select a college where the non-custodial profile is required. And then once that happens, then the non-custodial parent will get that email with the student's College Board FinAid ID, and then they can start. So even if the student says, I'm applying to BU and I know they require the non-custodial profile, the student, I believe, has to actually start that profile and list BU, and then the non-custodial parent will be able to start his or her own application.
That's great. So here's a question. We know that different colleges can ask their own specific questions. And so when a family answers those questions, do all of the colleges see those questions, or just the college that wanted the answer to that specific question see that?
Oh, that's a good question. I am pretty sure only the college requesting that, asking that question gets that information. And I believe it's because they might have to pay a fee to ask additional questions, but it's also, it's basically private to that school. So that school might want asking you about something, and all the other schools really shouldn't get that information because it's not asked on the main profile application. So I believe only that answer will go to those schools that requested it.
That's great. I'll have you answer this outright just because a lot of people asked it. Can you just talk about how to value their home that they live in on the form?
Oh yeah, we get that question a lot. So if on your primary home or any other real estate, we basically say just put your best guess. Sometimes if there's a home that is similar to your home in the neighborhood that recently sold, you can base your home value on that. You can simply go on Zillow or one of those other websites that gives an estimate of your home value. Whatever you believe your home is worth, you can put it, unless it's way off from what a Zillow or a site like that reports. The financial aid office is just going to trust you with your value and the debt that you're reporting. So just give your best guess of what you think your home is worth and any other real estate that you have, and go ahead and put that on the form.
That's great. And then we got a question. If divorcing in 2023, but filed joint return in 2022, how is the information from 2022 broken down or used?
Okay. So if you have a joint tax return and you're only pulling information for one parent because there's a situation of divorce or separation, you basically need to do the best that you can to only pull your information. So if I'm a parent who's divorcing and I have a joint return, I'm going to look at my tax return, and every line where I have to pull information and put it into the profile, I'm just going to pull my information. So for my wages, I'm going to disregard the wages of my ex-spouse, and I'm just going to pull my wages. Some of the lines, maybe taxes paid and other, just split in half. I mean, do the best you can to just pull out your information. The financial aid office, in some cases, might ask you then later to submit your tax return and again, break up the information between you and your soon-to-be ex-spouse. But when you're filling out the profile, just do the best you can to just pull in your information. Disregard the other person's and put that on the application.
That's great. And I'm going to ask you a question that sort of incorporates a lot. So someone asked, why is the FAFSA not available till December? And then the other questions that surround that are, so what about early action, early decision, you know, all of that? What am I going to do submitting my profile? So maybe you can just sort of give an overarching answer to a lot of these questions.
Yeah, so great question. So the FAFSA, for those who haven't heard, is getting a significant overhaul. And the goal is to make it simpler. We're calling it FAFSA simplification. And as a result, it's taking a long time for the Department of Education to make all those changes, especially on the back end. So the goal, of course, was to have the FAFSA ready October 1st, as it is every year, and that's just not going to happen. So the Department of Education has said to implement all of these changes that came through on this, it was basically the FAFSA Simplification Act that mandated these changes. We won't have it ready till December. So if you're a student who's applying early action or early decision, simply go to the financial aid webpage, which I know I've said a few times, go to the financial aid webpage of every school and see what's required. So there are schools this year that haven't used the profile in the past, and they're actually using the profile this year because the FAFSA won't be ready and they want to start giving people a financial aid offer. So it might be that you have to do the profile for a school. A school might have their own financial aid application. We've heard of at least one school, and there probably will be others who don't use the profile, usually just use the FAFSA, but they want some information before December from the family. So they're going to have their own financial aid application that you're going to download off the college's website. So you might have to do that. So just go to the web page, find out the requirements. You will still have to submit the FAFSA, even if you're applying early decision or early action. You're going to have to do the FAFSA when it does open in December or January. But in the meantime, colleges will have a plan in place. They might not have it on their website yet, so they might still be scrambling or figuring out what to do. Certainly by the deadline of the admissions application, they'll have something listed. So keep checking those websites just to see what they're going to do with their financial aid process. Is going to differ school to school.
That's great. And then a number of people asked this question too, or questions related to this. People are wondering, what if I don't have a College Board ID because my child took the ACT, for example? How do I do that? Where do I find that?
Yep. So just either the student or the parent needs to set up a College Board account. So really your family can decide what to do. If your child hasn't taken the SAT, doesn't plan to take an AP exam, you could set up the College Board ID. And again, you're going to you're going to click on set up a student account and put in parent information, or you can just have your child set up a College Board account. Maybe your child will be taking AP exams. They're going to have one anyway. So just have someone in the family, either the student or the parent, just register for a College Board account. Pretty simple process, typical questions as in registering on most websites. And then you'll get and then you can start the profile and you'll get your College Board FinAid ID.
And can I add a little caveat there? What if it's a legal guardian? Yeah. Can the legal guardian set up the College Board account for the student?
That's a good question. I would assume so, because we are requiring the legal guardian to act as the parent. So yep, if it's the legal guardian, you can go ahead and set up that College Board account.
Great. And now I'm going to ask you just 3 kind of smaller questions, but we'll just make sure we cover all this. Is the retirement value a required field?
Oh, that's a good question. I am actually not sure. I think it might be optional. And do you know, Julie? It might be an optional question.
I think so too, but I wasn't sure. So we can get that answer to folks. Maybe.
Yeah, we'll get that answer and we'll put that. What we'll likely do with this webinar is grab some great questions that you're all asking and put it into a blog post. So if there's anything we can't answer here, we'll put out a blog post probably in the next week and you can reference that. But I do think that retirement question is optional. And so you can put in the answer if you'd like to provide it. But we'll find out, and we'll make sure we have that answer in that blog post.
That's great. And we have a few questions left like that I think will be good for that. I'll ask one other question, because this is something larger you can talk about. Are the custodial and non-custodial parents' financial profiles weighted equally? And what if the non-custodial parent has more assets but doesn't support the student as much as the custodial parent? All kinds of issues, we run into.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, so in most cases, what profile schools can do is they can actually decide how they weight all of the information that they're getting in the profile. Most of them are going to weight it equally, so they'll just combine parent information, custodial and non-custodial parent information, put it together, and then they'll determine the financial aid eligibility for those institutional funds. But again, they're going to take special circumstances into consideration. So if there is something specific with the custodial or the non-custodial's financial information or something a little bit different or a little bit unique, go ahead and report that, because colleges really they are individually looking every student and making sure that they, as fairly as possible, determine your financial aid eligibility. But in most cases, they will look at the parents together and just combine their income information as if the parents were married. But again, some schools might do that completely differently. So differ school to school.
That's great. And let's see if there's anything else we should address here. If a small business income changes drastically year to year, will the schools consider this, or should I mention it in special circumstances?
Yeah, so any income fluctuations, mention it in special circumstances, especially some people who own a business. Maybe 2022 was a banner year. You made a lot of income. But you can show the college that, in the 10 years prior, and even in 2023, as it's looking right now, the income is much smaller. And that could be too if your income was inflated because of an inheritance or a one-time bonus. Colleges will take that into consideration. So put it in the special circumstances. And you could also get a jump on it and actually send documentation to the college to just show, here's my income previous to 2022, here's my estimated income for 2023, here's why 2022 was so big. And they can definitely take that into consideration. What they might do is take the average. They will take it into consideration, because what they want to do is give you financial aid that's fair for really the broad picture of your finances, and try to repeat that every year if it makes sense while the student's in college.
And then here's one. We get this question once in a while. This family owns a 2-family. So how do they list the value of the unit they live in versus the other part?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So if this is a true duplex where the unit you live in and the unit that you might be renting out are pretty even, they're evenly sized, they're about the same, you can take the value of the entire property and just split it in half. And for your primary home, you're going to actually report that amount, that half you live in. And then for the other real estate, you're going to have to report the unit that you don't live in. So even if it's not equal, try to just, again, you're just going to estimate as best you can the value of the property that you live in, or the section of the home that you live in, and then the value that you don't live in. And as a note on the FAFSA, you don't report your primary home information, but you do report other real estate. So if I live in a duplex and I live on one side with my family, and then the other side we own, but we rent out to another family in the neighborhood, we're going to have to report that other side of the duplex as other real estate on the FAFSA as an investment. We won't report the side we live in, but that other side is going to be other real estate. So again, do the best you can with estimating real estate property, your primary home, and any other property. And you're going to list the value, you're going to list the debt too. So the school's really only going to take into consideration your net value of every property you own.
And so just a couple more, I think, we still have a few minutes. Can you talk through the process if a non-custodial parent is really out of the picture and absent, and how a family would work with the school on that?
Sure. So if you go through the profile and you answer all the questions and it still looks like a college is requesting a non-custodial profile, there is, and you'll see on the slides, which again we'll send out, there's a URL, basically on the parent page of the CSS profile, so you could find it too. There's a waiver request, and what we usually tell the families is go ahead and fill that out. So non-custodial parent information is required. You can't get it for whatever reason. There's this request form. You can fill it out, and it basically allows you to explain your situation. Why can't you, as a student, get your non-custodial parent's information? Fill out that form. If you have any supporting documentation, whatever makes sense with your specific situation, attach that. You're going to send it to every school that's requiring that non-custodial profile. And then maybe give it a couple of weeks, follow up with each school to make sure that they got your waiver request and that they've either waived the requirement for you to submit non-custodial profile information, or maybe they've requested some additional information from you. But as the student, as the family, it's your job to follow up. If a non-custodial parent profile is requested for your financial aid process and you don't submit it, you are incomplete. You are not going to receive any financial aid except your federal and state aid. So the school won't provide you anything because your application is incomplete. So it's really important that you follow up with every school where you've submitted this waiver request. A lot of schools are very reasonable. If you're not in touch with the non-custodial parent, there's a safety issue, there's a reason you can't get in touch with that parent, they're going to waive that requirement. But you need to make sure the schools have done that. You've crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's, and completed every requirement in the process.
All right, I'm going to save this one for last because actually there are many, many questions about this. We're circling back to parents creating their own account or using their student's account. And so there were a lot of questions about if a parent sets up their own account, how does that information link? And then there were a lot of questions from parents about, well, if I have 2 children, does setting up my own account make it easier because then I link, to those 2? And I've been typing into the answers here about how each student needs their own account, but maybe you could just talk through that process one last time before we close.
Yeah, so it is confusing, and every year we hope that it'll change, but the easiest thing to do is probably do the CSS profile under the student's College Board account if they have one, or have the student create a College Board account, just because it's easier to create an account because it's the student and that's the language that's used. But if you're a non-custodial parent, or you're a parent who just doesn't want your student to see your information, you as the parent are going to set up a student account. So you're going to go in and you're going to, it's going to feel funny, it's going to look funny. You're going to click on, I want to set up a new student account. But again, my name's Meredith, I'm the parent. Where it says student's name as I'm registering for an account, I'm going to put Meredith. I have a daughter named Sawyer. I'm not going to put her name. I'm going to put my name, Meredith. I'm going to put my address, Meredith's address, my email address, mclement@mefa.org. I'm going to put my information. And then I'm going to be able to fill out the profile for my child under my account. I'm not sure if I'm going to link to, I guess putting in my child's identifying information will then just link my child and let the schools know that this is my child's CSS profile. But it's going to look funny, it's going to feel funny, but you're setting up a student account with your information as the parent. And in that example I gave, if you're a parent and you have twins and you don't want to use their College Board accounts, you need to set up 2 different accounts with 2 different email addresses. So every CSS profile needs its own College Board account, and every College Board account has its own email address. So if I have twins, I don't want to use their College Board account for whatever reason, I need to set up one College Board account using maybe my personal, maybe my Gmail address, and then I'm going to set up another College Board account, maybe using my work address, my MEFA address. That's such a pain, and we know it's such a pain, but that's how just the College Board operates, and that's how the CSS profile operates. So some families find that it's easy. We're just going to use the student's College Board account. A lot of the time, the student never looks at it. You're answering all the questions. They never log into their College Board account again. But that's just a workaround. If you don't want to use their account, you're going to set up your own College Board account. And we'll, on that blog post, we'll add some more information about this just so we have it written out for you too.
All right, well, some we didn't get to, but we know we will, and people can always call us. I'm going to end on one because it's a good answer on our part. Someone is asking, how are grandparent 529 plans counted? So maybe you can just give that good news.
Yeah. So if you have a grandparent who's opened a 529, I'll talk about the FAFSA and the profile. On the FAFSA, you don't report it anywhere. So if you're a family grandparent has a 529, you don't report the value anywhere. It used to be an old FAFSA process that when the grandparent withdrew that money and used it to pay for college, the student had to report that as their own income, which could be hefty if the parent or grandparent was withdrawing a lot of money. That has changed for the FAFSA. So on the FAFSA, grandparent 529s are never listed, ever, ever, ever. You don't list them as an asset. You don't list them when they're used. On the CSS profile, there is a question: does the student have a relative like a grandparent or family friend, anyone in their lives who's going to be helping them with college costs? So as a family, you could mention, yep, we have a grandparent with a 529. This is a question a lot of colleges might ignore it. A lot of colleges might eyeball it. It might raise a red flag if you are a family that has no resources and then you say, yep, we have $100,000 coming in from a grandparent 529. That's rarely the case. In most cases, students who report this, colleges will just basically ignore it. They might see, okay, grandparents are helping to pay for college, that's fine. A lot of colleges won't take it into consideration, or they might think about it when they're awarding financial aid. But again, there's just one question on the profile that asks about it. And it's this general question, you'll see it, I think it's toward the end. Are there any other resources that the student has coming from any other relatives? And it's just a kind of a general, kind of a vague question. And colleges just want to know, is there some outside resources coming in? That's the only place you're going to list it. So you're not going to answer, when you're answering those investment questions, student investments, parent investments. If you've got grandparent money, grandparent 529, you don't put that anywhere except that one question at the end.
All right, I think in time, and because we won't be able to get to all of these, I think we can stop there.
Great. So as Julie mentioned, call us or email us with any additional questions. We're going to go through all the questions asked today, and we'll compile them. We'll put them in a post. So check our blog in the next couple of weeks and we'll have more information, but just reach out anytime. We're happy to answer any questions for you. Great. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining today. Have a great day.